بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين سيدنا وحبيبنا وقرة أعيننا قائد الغر المحجلين وشفيع المذنبين وسيد ولد آدم ولا فخر محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وذريته ومن اهتدى بهديه واهتدى وتبع هداه ليوم الدين وبعد. So alhamdulillah, I think we are nearing our 40th class so far, 40 days more or less in a row, around thereabouts. And the ulama have a saying or a principle that if you are able to do something consistently for 40 days, then you will be able to do that, carry that afterwards. It takes 40 days to form a good habit or 40 days to break a bad habit. So perhaps the silver lining in this worldwide waba pandemic is that we hopefully had an opportunity to try to form some new good habits and perhaps break off from some of the old ones. And I hope that's true for me, and I hope that's true for everybody else, inshallah, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So we're reading from Al-Fath al-Rabbani al-Rahmani of Sayyidi Muhyiddin Abd al-Qadir, Sultan al-Ulama, al-Jilani, radiallahu anhu. So the sublime revelation and the divine merciful outpourings of the Shaykh among his discourses that were recorded for about a year and a half, but really he was doing it over 40 years in this fashion, giving a majlis 3 times a week in 2 places, in one twice in the madrasa and once in the ribat. So the madrasa is actually that complex is where his tomb, his mausoleum is located today in Baghdad. And then there was a ribat, which was like a smaller place, I think, a zawiya, that the Shaykh also would do durus, lessons, and majalis out of. So we have reached majlis number 45. And it says this one he gave in the madrasa. An-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam قال: ملعون من كانت ثقته بمخلوق مثله. ما أكثر الذين دخلوا في هذه اللعنة من خلق كثير. واحد يثق بالله عز وجل ومن وثق بالله عز وجل فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى. ومن وثق بمخلوق مثله فهو كالقابض على الماء يفتح يده ولا يرى فيها شيئا. ويحك الخلق يقضون حوائجك يوما أو 2 أو 3 أو شهرا أو سنة أو سنتين، وفي الآخرة يضجرون منك. عليك بصحبة الحق عز وجل وإنزال حوائجك به، فإنه لا يضجر منك ولا يسأم من حوائجك دنيا وآخرة. الموحد عند قوة توحيده لا يبقى له أب ولا أم ولا أهل ولا صديق ولا عدو ولا مال ولا جاه ولا سكون إلى شيء في الجملة لا يبقى له سوى التعلق بباب الحق عز وجل ومنته أو منني. يا واثقا بالدينار والدرهم اللذين في يدك، عن قريب يذهبان من يدك عقوبة لك كما يفنيهما أو يفنيهما. قد كان في يد غيرك فسلب منه وسلم إليك لتستعين بهما على طاعة مولاك عز وجل وجعلتهما صنمك. يا جاهل، تعلم العلم لوجه الله عز وجل واعمل به، فإنه يؤدبك. العلم حياة والجهل موت. الصديق إذا فرغ من تعلم العلم الصديق إذا فرغ من العلم المشترك أدخل في العلم الخاص علم القلوب والأسرار. So let's just look at that part first. Prophet ﷺ said, accursed is he whose trust is in a creature like himself. And the Shaykh says, how many are those who have come under this curse? Out of very many people, there is but one who trusts in Allah Azza wa Jal, and someone who trusts Allah, according to the verse, فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى, has grasped the most secure handle. As for someone who trusts in a creature similar to himself, he is like a person clutching at water. He opens his hand and sees nothing in it. Woe unto you, creatures may fulfill your needs for a day or two or three, for a month, for a year or two, but they eventually get bored with you. You must seek the companionship of the Lord of Truth, Al-Haq Azza wa Jal, and lay your needs down before Him, for He will never get bored with you or tire of you, nor will He grow weary of your needs in this world and the hereafter. When His affirmation of divine unity, Tawheed, becomes strong, he who affirms it, Al-Wahid, is left with no father, no mother, no family, no friend, no foe, no wealth, no social status, and nothing at all to rely on. He is left with nothing apart from clinging to the door of Al-Haq and His gracious favors. O you trust in the dinar, the gold coin, and the dirham, the silver coin, in your hand they will very soon leave your possession as a punishment for you. It seems you wanted them badly when they were held by someone else, so they were taken away from him and handed over to you in order that you might use them in obedience to your master Azza wa Jal. But then you made them your idol, your sanam. O ignorant one, you must acquire knowledge for the sake of Allah and put it into practice, for He will educate you. Knowledge is life and ignorance is death. When the Siddiq, the champion of truth, has finished studying common knowledge, he or she is introduced to the study of special knowledge, the knowledge of hearts and the innermost beings, ilm al-qulub wal-asrar. So we've seen this theme run a few times before with the Shaykh. Here he's saying that this thiqah, which a translator translated as trust, or we could also say confidence, or that which gives you a sense of comfort, knowing that you can rely upon this particular thing, is probably how I would phrase it. If you put it in anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you put it in a makhluq, mithlak, in a created being like yourself, then this is a type of la'na, right? It's a type of curse. To put that level of thiqah or trust in someone else. And we see this from our own selves. We know that we can't really take care of our own needs, right, when we get into trouble, or even just our day by day. We do kind of depend upon others. And so those others that we're looking at, they also can't really take care of their own needs. So they're no different than you. So don't be misguided and don't be fooled by what it seems like they have of power, of influence, of possessions, of the like. At the end of the day, there's still a makhluk, there's still a created being like you, no matter how wealthy they seem or how influential they seem or how powerful they seem, and all those type of things. And if you do see them like that, that they are more capable than you are and have the ability to take care of your deeds, then the Shaykh says you see them like you almost put them in the position of a sanam, right? And a sanam is an actual physical idol. So don't idolize people in that sense. Leave it all with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَهَذَا الْإِسْتِمْسَاكِ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى. So hold on to something strong, here representing the strong handle, representing holding on to the mercy and the grace and the providence of God, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he says, عَلَيْكَ بِصُحْبَةِ الْحَقِّ وَإِنزَالْ حَوَائِجِكَ بِهِ. So the best companion you can have, you can take as a companion, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And earlier in the day, we had another session with another group. Some of you might have been there. And we talked about this idea of companionship, or taking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as your companion. And this is unlike any companion you can take in the dunya. Because when we talk about a sahib or a companion in another person like you, then there's a sahib and then there's the musahab. So there's you and then the one that you take as a companion. It actually goes back and forth both ways. So if it's a one-sided relationship, or remains a one-sided relationship, whereas you see them as your companion, but they don't see you as your companion, as their companion, afwan, it's not going to be sustainable. It's not going to last because it's one-sided. And so companionship in the dunya does have this kind of mutual agreement, muwafaqa. So in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, al-arwah junudun mujannada, من تعرف منها ائتلف ومن تناكر منها اختلف. من تعرف منها ائتلف. Those that have تعارف, right, common ground and common understanding, ائتلفت, يعني they come together and they are able to follow one another. ومن تناكر منها اختلف. And those that have Quran or not really comfortable with one another and not really on the same page and so forth. In other words, there's not a minimum level of muwafaqa. Muwafaqa means agreement. If that's not there, then that friendship or companionship is not really going to work. They can remain an acquaintance, kind of someone you know from a distance, but to have like a confidant sort of relationship, it's not going to work. There has to be muwafaqa. And so with al-haq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a one-way companionship. So we take Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as our companion, but He does not take us as His companion, because that would imply that He needs something, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need anything from us, and He is not anything like us. هو الغني ونحن الفقراء إليه. He is the one who's completely self-sufficient. وهو الحي القيوم, and He gives others their existence and their sufficiency, but He doesn't need that from anyone. And so He doesn't need to take us as a companion. We need to take Him as our companion. So this companionship is different in that it's not like a two-way street. And then the other aspect is the muwafaqa, right? When it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in other words, the agreement means agreement in two things about Allah. His two, lahu al-khalq wal-amr. So He has creation, He creates, and this is sometimes referred to as the other type of amr, al-amr al-takwini. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says be, and it is, as we've said before. And so acceptance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala huwa al-khaliq wa huwa al-mukawwin, right? Accept that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the creator, and He is the mukawwin, and He is the musawwir, right? Mukawwin, He's the things that gives it al-kaynuna, He gives it its existence, and He gives things at-taswir, and musawwir, He forms them. And so there has to be an acquiescence, an istislam, a submission to that idea. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sovereignty over all those things. And then we saw this is a ta'alluq. Then you become connected and you become subservient to the understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created everything. And He is the one who gives things their existence. He maintains their existence. And if He so wills, He can remove their existence. So we're completely dependent upon Him, Azza wa Jal. And then lahu al-khalqu wal-amr. هذا الأمر التكليفي. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also commands, right? And He commands us to do certain things. There are commands, there are prohibitions, there are things that are offensive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are things that are required that we need to do. So all of those things fall under the understanding of the amr or the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our musahaba, taking Allah as a companion, means acquiescent to both of those things, to His khalq, annahu al-khaliq, and that means trying to bear witness, as we did a long time ago, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our Lord. Alastu bi rabbikum qalu bala shahidna, trying to get back into our sir and witness that. And then when we witness that, we say bala shahidna, we are witnessing that thing. And also to have the acquiescence and the performance of those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to do. So the things that Allah has commanded us to do, we also do them, and we also stay away from the prohibitions. And so the muwafaqa then comes from our end. The mistake that people make is their connection or their relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then becomes based upon the opposite. They expect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give agreement or be in agreement with the things that they want. So when they say things like, oh, I keep making dua, but Allah's not listening to me, or He's not giving me what I want or giving me what I need, and I'm still in this position and it hasn't changed yet, and I keep asking for it and Allah is not changing it. It's the other way around. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one you have to be in agreement with, not He has to be in agreement with you. So it's like you're saying to Him, I want X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to take you as my companion as long as you're granting me X, Y, and Z. But if you're not granting me X, Y, and Z, then it feels like it's not working. Like how the modern relationship today, when people want to break up, they say, oh, it's not working for me. This no longer working for me. How could we do that with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He's not your girlfriend or boyfriend you take into the prom. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your creator. He is your maker. He is the sovereign over you. And so we don't expect him to have muwafaqa and agreement with the things that we want. So we need to turn around and submit to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. And the question that one of the people asked, wasn't the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam Allah's Khalil? Indeed. Al-Khulla, right, to be the Khalil of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is it's a special type of companionship. It's a musahaba or ma'iyya khassa, right? It's a special type of being with Allah. And Allah grants that to certain anbiya like Ibrahim alayhi salam and also our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi salam. They both had this khulla, but it doesn't mean that Allah needed them. Allah doesn't need Ibrahim, nor does he need Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Both Ibrahim and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam need him, but they had a special recognition because of their maqam and their station with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they always saw Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as their Khalil, as their wakil, right? فَاتَّخِذْهُ وَكِيلًا, Quran tells us. رَبُّ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ فَاتَّخِذْهُ وَكِيلًا, Surah Al-Muzammil, I think. He is the Lord of both the Mashriq and the Maghrib, of the East and the West. So take him as your wakil. Take him as the one that you put your complete trust and your complete faith in, not the other way around. So if you want al-khulla, right, then that means you have to have complete submission in all of the ahkam. So al-hukm al-takwini wal-hukm al-taklifi. That which Allah says be and it is, and nawazil, the circumstances of your life around you, to be in submission to that, and also to submit to the commands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks you to do, those type of commands as well. And that's why he says here, when you reach this quwwat al-tawheed, the strength of tawheed, right? And tawheed means really, in its most pristine form, is to see nor have hopes in, nor put one's aspirations in, or witness to anything really except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so if you say Allah and, that's not the highest and foremost and most pristine form of tawheed. The highest form of tawheed, the tawheed al-muhaqqaq, as he's mentioning, al-quwwat al-tawheed, the strength of the tawheed. Then it's like you don't have a father or a mother or family or friend or money or prestige or anything at all, but you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then those things that you do have, they were given to you by Allah. They don't have this independent existence. And so if they belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he decides to take them away from you, or he decides to give them to you, then that's his prerogative. He is the one who he is the one who has the most right to do that. And so our i'tirad, our objection when things are taken away from us, we certainly don't object when things are given to us. And then we say things like, mashallah, Allah's rewarding me, and see what happens when you worship Allah right, he gives you things. يعني هذه فيها ما فيها. There's some issue with thinking of things like that. What about when he takes them away? Does that mean he's not rewarding you? Does that mean he's punishing you? Does that mean he's not interested in you anymore? No, doesn't mean that. It actually could mean quite the opposite. Sometimes when he takes away things, when he deprives things, it's really he's giving you something, as Ibn Atta Secondary says in the Hikam. رُبَّمَا مَنَعَكَ فَأَعْطَاكَ وَرُبَّمَا أَعْطَاكَ فَمَنَعَكَ. Sometimes he'll give you something and he's really depriving you of something. Sometimes he takes away something, deprives you of something, and he's actually giving you something better, something more. And this is what Shaykh says here, down here, فَإِنَّهُ يُؤَدِّبُكَ اللَّهُ يُؤَدِّبُكَ. Allah is giving you ta'deeb, like the Prophet ﷺ said about Allah. أَدَّبَنِي رَبِّي فَأَحْسَنَ تَأْدِيبِي. My Lord has inculcated within me adab. He's teaching me, like what people say today, the school of hard knocks, when they talk about life. That's what life is, and that's not happening by itself. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So أَدَّبُكَ رَبُّكَ. And so you learn things from this ta'deeb. You learn through the mihan. You learn through the difficulties that there are minah في طي هذه المنح. In the folds of these trials and tribulations, there are things to be had. There are things to be learned. There are specific lessons to you in your specific circumstances that no one else is going to learn from them. Only you're going to learn from them. And so with the 7 billion people in the world, there's 7 billion different messages and risa'il for each nafas. So multiply the number of breaths times the number of people who are alive right now, and those are the number of messages Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending out. Huwa al-mutakallim. He's still communicating with us, and so he's still communicating with you and with me and everybody else. But the whole idea here, why we're reading this book, so we can learn how to read. We're learning how to read. Just like when we learn A, B, C, D, E, we learn how to read the words, or Alif, Ba, Ja, Jim, Ha, so far, Abjad, Hawaz. Then we're also learning how to read the creation, read the Rasa'il, read the messages that are coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to you. And in order to do that, you have to be a good reader, and you have to have the alphabet, right? What's the alphabet of this type of reading? You have to have sabr, you have to have patience, you have to have tawakkul, you have to have ma'rifah, you have to have tawheed, you have to have shukr, gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the alphabet of reading that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to say to you. And so He will teach you. يُؤَدِّبُكَ. He's teaching us, and He tells us al-ilmu hayah, and knowledge is life, وَالْجَهْلُ مَوْت, and ignorance is death. And then He says الصديق إذا فرغ من تعلم العلم المشترك أدخل في العلم الخاص, or أدخل في العلم الخاص. When the Siddiq, when the one who has mastered the language, this is what the Siddiq is, the one who is Sadiq, ووصل إلى أعلى مراتب الصدق, to the highest levels of sincerity, and they've mastered the language of reading, this particular type of reading, أدخله في العلم الخاص. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes him into a different type of knowledge. So we're not going to be just reading, short stories and newspaper articles. Now we're going to be reading into the classics and the most eloquent poetry that you can think about, and also the most eloquent prose and so forth. هذا العلم الخاص, because now you have the tools to read, and that's علم القلوب والأسرار. علم القلوب والأسرار. So the knowledge of the qalb and the asrar. المعاني التي ترد على القلوب والمعاني التي ترد على الأسرار. The meanings that come to the heart and the meaning that comes to the innermost being, to the sir. Now, when they come, you know how to read them. The mistake that people make is, they want to read Beowulf or Shakespeare, and they don't know how to read Goodnight Moon yet. So read at your level. Not all of the thoughts that come to your head or the meanings you think that are coming to your heart are there, and in the sense that you think that they mean. And it's easy to mistake them for that. And the nafs likes that. The ego is going to help you along and saying, oh, mashallah, أنت وصلت, أنت وصلان, أنت, you've arrived, and you are from, kibar al-awliya, and you're from the big, awliya of the ummah, and, look at you, and these meanings that come to your heart and your sir, and they're there, just act upon them, and, you're on your way, and so forth. Al-awliya don't actually think like that. They go through the same things that the rest of us go through. Namely, what does the Sharia have to say about that? Right? You got that what you think is a ilham, or an inspiration that, as has happened to some, and some have written about this, like, I have the ma'arifah, I have the meanings that I need. I don't really need to struggle that much in my ibadah anymore. I don't need to pray as much and so forth. And, if I pray Maghrib out of its time, not a big deal, because I'm already there. I kind of have those meanings, and I feel this is Allah inspired me to that, and it must be right because I feel it in my heart. No, take it back to the Sharia. What does the Sharia have to? What does Lisan al-Ilm have to say? Which he calls here al-Ilm al-Mushtarak. Al-Mushtarak means it's Mushtarak bayn al-Nas. It's common. In other words, it's not that common. What he means by common is common amongst the ulama. So you have your theology, and what is necessary for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is impossible, and what is possible in terms of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the same thing in terms of his prophets and Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the sam'iyat. You're familiar with all of the things that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told us about the next life, or for ilm al-ghayb, and things that can't be seen or perceived. And then you have your knowledge of fiqh. You know how to pray. You know what wudu is. You know what invalidates wudu. You know what invalidates ghusl. When you have to do ghusl. When you can do tayammum and when you can't do tayammum. You know how much you need to pay zakat, how much you are if you don't have enough, and so forth. So that's what he calls it mushtarak, not what we think mushtarak, like the very basic of there's 5 prayers in the day and then I'm good to go. He said once you have ihkam of that, right? من تعلم العلم المشترك أدخل في العلم الخاص. Then you can go in العلم الخاص, right? Don't يعني لا تسبق الأحداث قبل أوانها. Don't try to jump the gun and run before you can walk. Like we said, perfect Good Night Moon and Dr. Seuss, and then we can move on to difficult stuff, like Beowulf and Shakespeare and whatever else people read at a higher level. Then we can go on to that. So إحكام وإتقان العلم المشترك, then العلم الخاص علم القلوب والأسرار. And then when those meanings actually come to your heart and to your sir, they're true. And they are what they are, and they have these meanings. But like I said, even the awliya will take it back to the Quran and Sunnah first. So you need to know the Quran and Sunnah at least fairly well so you can identify that. Otherwise, it's like what the Shaykh says, what the word he uses, hawas. Hawas means it's just nonsense. It's just nafsiyat, and it's just a nafsul al-khadda', right? The nafs tries to trick you, and it tries to have you slip up, and it knows what you want, and so it's going to kind of whisper to you what you think that you want. So علم القلوب والأسرار. Then he says إذا تمكن في هذا العلم صار سلطان دين الله عز وجل يأمر وينهى عن نهيه، يأخذ منهم بأمره ويعطيهم بأمره، فيكون معهم بالحكم ومع الحق عز وجل بالعلم. الحكم بواب على الباب والعلم داخل الدار. الحكم عام والعلم خاص. العارف واقف على باب الحق عز وجل، وقد سلم إليه علم المعرفة والاطلاع على أمور لم يطلع غيره عليها. يؤمر بالعطاء فيعطي، ويؤمر بالإمساك فيمسك، يؤمر بالأكل فيأكل، يؤمر بالجوع فيجوع، يؤمر بالإقبال على شخص وبالإعراض عن آخر، يؤمر بالأخذ من شخص وبالرد إلى آخر. المنصور من نصره، المخذول من خذله. القوم يأتون إليكم ولمنفعتكم لا لحوائجكم أو لحوائجهم. لا حاجة لهم إلى أحد من الخلق، في حبال الخلق يفتلون ولبنيانهم يشيدون. So let's just look at that. So then when he has mastered this knowledge, يعني علم القلوب والأسرار, he becomes the sultan, the ruler of the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, commanding and prohibiting, giving and withholding on the authority of the one who has installed him in power, right? The one who invested with him in that, al-Musultan, namely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He becomes a ruler over the people, commanding what Allah commands and forbidding what He forbids, taking from them as He commands and giving to them as He commands. Thus He is with them in regard to the rule of law, al-hukm, and with the Lord of truth, al-haq, in regard to knowledge, يعني علم القلوب والأسرار. The rule of law is a doorman, a bawab, at the door, while knowledge is inside the house. So that means, like we said earlier, so you think you have some secrets and some ma'ani and inspiration, and you saw things in a dream, and now you think you're all that. Well, take it through the bawab, right? Take it through the doorman of al-hukum, which is al-hukm al-shari. What does the Quran and Sunnah have to say about it? There's no way that a true dream and a true inspiration is going to command you to do something mukhalif lil-sharia. That's why they said al-sharia wal-haqiqa are the same thing. The haqiqa is the reality and the knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can invest in some, and the sharia is the way that we deal with, al-mu'amala is the path. So there cannot be a contradiction between those two. And so if you think you receive something of the haqiqa and it's contradicting the sharia, then the problem is not the sharia, the problem is you, is your concept of what you think the haqiqa is. So then it's hawas, it's nonsense, or it's misguidance. That's why we have to have the bawab. You have the doorman, you have the guards to your heart. And so they have to check, okay, this thing that you saw in the dream, or this thing that you think you've been inspired to, does it pass the litmus test of the sharia? If it does, then we can consider it. But if it doesn't, it's to be rejected, thrown out the front door. Don't even let him in. So he becomes ruler over the people, commanding what Allah commands from everyone, and so forth. Then he is with them in regard to the rule of law, the hukum, and with the Lord of truth, al-haq, in regard to knowledge, al-ilm. The rule of law is a doorman or a bawab at the door, while knowledge is inside the house. The rule of law is general, am, while the knowledge is specific, khas. Yani these ma'ani, these meanings could be khas to you. And that's another adab min al-adab. Just because you receive some particular type of inspiration does not mean that it now becomes the sharia and it's applicable to everybody else. هذا خاص بك. It's something specific to you, but it has to go through the bawabat al-shara. The knower or the arif applies at the door of the Lord of Truth, and he is granted intimate knowledge and ma'rifah and ittila, information concerning matters about which others may be uninformed. He is ordered to give, so he gives. He is ordered to withhold, so he withholds. He is ordered to eat, so he eats. He is ordered to go hungry, so he goes hungry. He is ordered to approach one individual and to avoid another. He is ordered to take from one person and to give back to another. Successful are those who support him, and failures are those who let him down. So, يكون أمره بالله ونهيه بالله and أكله بالله وشربه بالله. Everything by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because now that the tawheed is firmly placed and it has penetrated every fiber of his or her being, that means they don't make a move and they don't stay silent and they don't eat or not eat or go hungry or not go hungry, except they feel that there is a muwafaqa, right? There is a divine sanction, let's say, a better word, or a divine mandate for the things that they do. And this goes back to the hadith al-Qudsi that we've brought up many, many times, that the most beloved thing that a servant can do is to fulfill that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligated upon them, maftaratu alayh. Then he does the nawafil, or she does the nawafil, things that you do voluntarily, and you do it shakiran, shakirin, you do it as showing great gratitude and thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not so that you can elicit a particular spiritual state, but you do it as thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves them, loves the person who does this. Then he becomes كُنْتُ سَمْعُ الَّذِي يَسْمَعُ بِهِ وَالْبَصَرُ الَّذِي يَبْصُرُ بِهِ. Or another version, فَبِهِ يَسْمَعُ وَبِهِ يَبْصِرُ وَبِهِ يَبْطِشُ. So it is by me that he sees, and by me that he hears, and by me that he strikes, and by me that he walks. And if he were to ask anything, then لَأَعْطِيَنَّهُ, then I would give it to him. This is describing al-wilaya al-khassa. This is describing the special type of wilaya that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يختص برحمته من يشاء, that he may grant to some people. And so if someone is in that particular state, maqam, it's not a hal, it's not a temporary kind of euphoric type of feeling, or a hal that can come about in the wake of a particular act of obedience or some meanings, but it's a state, it becomes a maqam, something that's more permanent, and something that inshallah, once Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it to you, rarely does it take it away. So then you feel there's divine mandate and divine sanction in the things that you do. And the way to get to that is the program we just described. You have to go by the Sharia, and you have to learn it, and you have to study, and you have to be with the people of knowledge, and you have to be with the people who may have some of this knowledge, both ilm al-mushtarak, right, which is the knowledge of fiqh and hadith and theology, which is essential, cannot do without it. And then there are the practitioners, and will be given the understanding, the fiqh of the qalb, the understanding of the heart, of the innermost secret, wa nur al-batin, and the enlightenment of the batin, of your innermost secret, of your batin, and your sir will be better than your alaniya. So that which is you do privately and that which is within you is even better than what people see from the outside. I'm just going to kind of read one more thing. page 272. I'm just going to read the English. Fourth paragraph or so. It says, woe unto you if you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to let you benefit at the hands of people, He will let you benefit. And if you want Him to let you suffer injury at their hands, this will happen. He is the subjugator and the softener, al-mulayyin, and the hardener, al-muqassi of hearts. He is the one who brings life, al-muhyi, and the one who causes death, al-mumit, and the giver, al-mu'ti, and the withholder, al-mani'. He is the honorer, al-mu'izz, and the abaser, al-mudhil. He is the one who causes sickness, al-mumrid, and the one who restores to health, al-mu'afi. He is the one who satisfies, and the one who causes hunger, al-mushabba', al-mujawwa'. He is the one who clothes, al-muqsi, and the one who strips naked, al-mu'arri. He is the benefactor, al-muhsin, and the desolator, and he is al-muhish, and he is the first, al-awwal, and the last, al-akhir, and the outer, al-zahir, and the batin. All this is He, no other than He. You must believe this firmly with your heart and cultivate good relations with creatures with your outer, with your zahir. This is the task of the salihin and the muttaqeen. They dedicate themselves to Allah under all circumstances and treat people with gentle courtesy, right? With mudara and with adab, as we said in the previous session. They talk to them in a way that is intelligible to their hearts, in a good-natured manner, in keeping with the moral character of the book and the sunnah, and they instruct them in what these two contain. If people are receptive, they let them know that they appreciate this response. But if people deviate from these two standards, no friendship or courtesy can remain between them. They may treat people impolitely where the commandments and prohibitions of Allah are at stake. Here, what he means by impolitely is with resolve, with firmness, when there is a clear mandate to do so. You must make your heart a place of worship, a masjid. Do not pray to anyone along with Allah, as Allah has said, and the places of worship belong to Allah, so do not pray to anyone with Allah. وَأَنَّ مَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. So the masajid are for Allah, so make your heart a masjid. So if we keep filth out of the masjid and najasat, and we can't have the smell of even garlic or onions entering into the masjid, because this is the house of Allah, while the qalb also is Baytul Rabb. Your heart is also the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we want to keep out of it also the metaphoric or the figurative najasat. So the filth of extraneous thoughts and thoughts of jealousy and of hatred and of rancor and of enmity and of su'ul dhan and having bad opinion of people. And we want to keep out the garlic, and we want to keep out the onions, things that are nafsaniyat, I and me, and what will I do, and how is this going to affect me, and the self-centered sort of selfish existence that many of us reside in. All of those things are natana. All of those things are impure, and they make the heart impure. And this is your masjid, your heart inside. It's your masjid. You want to keep it clean. You want to keep it tayyib. You want to keep it perfumed. You want to have bukhur. You want the nazar of God, the countenance and gaze of God to look towards your heart and see only purity and not see any filth. And so, this masjid is for Allah. Your heart is for Allah and for no one else. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept and into His mercy and take us out of His sakht and out of His circle of wrath. بإذنه ومنه وكرمه وجوده. الحمد لله رب العالمين.